This is part 5 of the video series Analysing Kathleen Stock's interview on LBC. Hope you enjoy it.
I think that you have put your signature alongside a lot of other people who have quite extremist views, and obviously there is an association.
Do you regard JK Rowling as an extremist, Dave?
I wouldn't say she's an extremist, no.
Well,
but she believes the same things that Kathleen believes.
I think
This is indicative of the poverty of our political debate in this country these days. How far we've sunk. I mean, can we talk about ideas? Is that too much to ask? I mean, who you sit next to on the bus is like, why are we arguing about this? And to tar people with the brush of extremism. It's not extreme. These are moderate, normative views that are shared by the majority of the population. Just because there's a tiny subculture in which these views are termed extremist doesn't make them into extremist views. These are moderate views. These are normal views. These are the views of the vast majority of people who exist in this shared reality that we have. We have to end this practice of allowing people to label perfectly normal, perfectly these are just really commonplace views. They're not extremist views. They're not hate speech. They're not incitements to violence. These are normal, everyday views shared by normal, everyday people up and down the country and indeed around the world.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
No, I'm not going to repeat it. I've had enough of Dave. So I'm going to end this video here. And when the next caller comes on, who's not talking absolute baloney, I'll start up a new video. I might get myself a cup of tea as well. It's about that time. Welcome back. In the previous video, we were listening to Dave calling in to the Iain Dale show on LBC where he interviewed Kathleen Stock. So we're now at the 1 minute 27 mark, and I was getting really frustrated with Dave, and I said, this guy's a wrong un, and guess what he goes on to say?
I mean,
Contentious is one thing, extremist is another.
and this is basically guilt by association, which is, a very common tactic. But, these people, how am I responsible for what other people sign?
Well, you're not responsible for what other people sign.
Thank you.
But you're in the same group of people, so therefore it is almost like guilt by association when you really do have extremists that are co-signatories of this document, which is essentially...
They probably shop at Tesco's, but it doesn't mean everyone who shops at Tesco's is an extremist. Not that I accept that these people are extremists, but this is a really crass tactic to try and get at me, to be honest, because, I do things that lots of other people do.
I don't think it's crass, to be honest. I think that you have put your signature alongside a lot of other people who have quite extremist views, and obviously there is an association.
Do you regard JK Rowling as an extremist, Dave?
I wouldn't say she's an extremist, no.
Well,
but she believes the same things that Kathleen believes.
I think... Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, I just said that JK Rowling is essentially believing roughly the same things as my interpretation, and Kathleen, disagree with me if you like, but they're both saying the same thing. And if you don't think JK Rowling is an extremist, I mean, you haven't said that you think Kathleen is, but given that you've criticised her for signing this declaration, you don't agree with her, that's quite clear, and that's perfect. Disagreement is fine.
I don't agree with the things that JK Rowling has said necessarily. I don't agree with some of the way that she's sort of gone about some of the things. For example, the 3 people peacefully protesting outside her house saying that she was doxxed when that address, for example, was readily available all over Google.
It isn't.
I'm sorry, Dave. I don't think anybody should be protesting about anything outside somebody's private house. I think that is a disgrace.
Yeah, and her address is not readily available. That's an absolute myth.
It is. I mean, if you go and look, for example...
Well, Oh no, I don't. No. We're not going to go into any area where Kathleen's address could be identified, because you've kind of lost the argument just by saying that.
Good.
I think it is an absolute disgrace that anybody, that whether they're a private individual or have put their head above the parapet in the way that Kathleen has, they do not deserve to have their home life disrupted in
That's
that
really
way.
good
Whether
that
they're
he said that.
politicians, whether they're academics, whether they're celebrities, whether they're anybody. That is one step too far. Dave, thank you very much. 0345.
It's interesting, isn't it? We're getting the accusations of being extremists. These guys think it's okay to turn up at someone's house? Incredible. Right, I'm going to skip through the news and come back.
Interesting text here from Lucy, who says, I really wanted to be a boy until I was about 14. These things aren't necessarily fixed at all, especially not for children and teenagers. I think that's...
Yeah, we know that in previous times when children that were expressing distress about their sex body, they were given a lot of non-directive talk therapy, and they found that puberty is a really good intervention for resolving a lot of this distress, and that growing into their adult bodies and the potential for pleasure and the ability to create relationships with other peers serves as a very good treatment for people that feel dissatisfaction about their sex bodies.
A really interesting point, isn't it? Because I've talked to mothers who phoned into the programme this is several years ago now, who said that I know that my 4-year-old has been born into the wrong body, and yet
Vegan cats.
Your heart goes out to them in a sense, and
My heart does not go out to parents who claim that a 4-year-old has any kind of gender identity. No.
Everyone rushes to judgment on those things, don't they?
Well,
yes, I judge child abuse as a bad thing, and telling a child that they are something that they are not is a form of emotional abuse. And if it leads into a medical intervention that will permanently disrupt that child's natural development into an adult of the appropriate sex, that is medical abuse and physical abuse, and oftentimes it's associated with sexual abuse. I judge all of that as bad. Yep, I do. I mean, no parent is perfect, don't get me wrong. There are degrees of harm, and not letting your child go and stay over at a friend's house is not in the same league as telling the child that they can grow up and be a girl when they are clearly going to grow up and become a man.
Well, we may rush to judgment, but what we really need to do is think about what it means to think that your 4-year-old child could have been born in the wrong body. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me, because 4-year-olds are building their map of the world. They don't even necessarily know what it is to be a boy or a girl. And what we are finding and hearing from clinicians in gender identity clinics is that there is a higher proportion than normal of same-sex attracted adolescents, or autistic children and adolescents, or children with a history of trauma. So there's many reasons why they might say I'm in the wrong body, but it doesn't mean adults need to rush to say, yes, you are. We need to listen carefully. But this is something that can be resolved, and probably will resolve if left alone when they get a bit older.
And just finally, before we go to the news, just responding to that call from Dave.
Hello, Dave.
Where he was saying so-and-so is an extremist. This tweet says, not every trans woman is a sex pest, as you're indirectly seeming to say, and see how this works, Kathleen.
Well, I'm absolutely not saying that, and of course, as I'm not saying every man is a sex pest, because I say no, that men should stay out of women's changing rooms. This is safeguarding, as I say. You exclude the many because of the few, and that's how it works. So no, I absolutely know that most trans people are not in any way predatory, and trans women as well. I absolutely know that because I know some trans women.
We'll come back to more of your calls in a moment with Kathleen Stock. It's 8:32. Let's get the news headlines with Andy Ivy.
Okay, we're back.
We've gone through the issues which have been in the media for a long time. And another one, what medical condition is a sex change supposed to cure? Where are the medics in curing the social fall? I'm not quite sure exactly what that means.
What it means is that this The medical institutions understand that we cannot change sex, okay? This is established, this is fact, this is reality. And yet, because of pressure from a certain lobby, we have enabled everything to be turned on its head, so that we've now got clinics pushing hormones on teenage girls who are queuing up to have mastectomies, double mastectomies as soon as possible. They are literally cutting healthy flesh away from very young adults. And I saw a really good tweet the other day by a woman, who was it? I can't remember, but it said all these people that are regretting their Harry Potter tattoos. Yes, isn't that a funny thing? Even as a young adult, you may make a decision about your body which you later come to regret. You know, your brain is still developing until you're about 25. Really, we should be discouraging anybody from having a cosmetic surgical intervention before that age.
This is really refreshing to hear, says Dave, who's stuck on the M56.
Different Dave, obviously.
Dave. Someone with a structured and sensible view which is factual yet stands in the face of a seriously oversensitive society. Anna is in Kingston upon Thames. Hello, Anna.
Hello, hi.
Hello.
Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to call up and give my support to Kathleen. I was driving from the shop, funny enough, the shop that you mentioned earlier, Kathleen, and I just thought, wow. I'm so glad that somebody's speaking up about this, as whether it was an email or text or somebody saying oversensitive environment we're in at the moment, etc., etc. When I first heard about this, which is quite a while ago, as a woman myself and as a mother to a daughter, I was quite astounded that basically from one day to another, a person can self-identify, if I understand correctly, and decide whatever sex they should belong to. And I initially thought back to when my daughter was little, when she was a toddler, 4 or 5 years old, a little bit older like that, when we were standing in ladies' rooms queues, and then at times you might have to say to your girl, okay, you can go in by yourself. If any of that changed, or if I saw somebody who I thought, hold on a second, is this really a queue for, and I hope I'm saying this in the correct way, before like women only, I would feel as a mother, like I said, to daughter, I would be very worried. As you mentioned before as well, opportunists, people who just decide, again, maybe waking up one day and saying, okay, I'm going to self-identify as a woman today, and then they're just going to do and go and do horrible things to women and to young girls, to young children. So thank you for speaking up about this. I just think it's really good and fantastic.
This is the end of part 5. Please watch out for part 6 dropping on my timeline soon.